Good evening, everyone. I would like to thank the Heaven's Grace, Enlightened Holy Teacher's Virtues, thank our senior transmitter Jin, all transmitter, lecturer, temple hosts, and all of you for this opportunity to study tonight. Our topic is on essential excerpts of the 论语. 论语 translated in English is the Analects. So we're going to focus on book 1, chapter 学而, and the verses from 1 to 9. So first, let's talk a little bit about Confucius, because this is 论语 is a Confucian school of thought. Confucius is the first teachers, right? And actually, Confucius is a larger than life, this heavenly, sagely holy teacher. He is one of our holy teachers in the 64 patriarchs, the Tao lineage. I don't think I can do him justice in the little bit that we're going to touch upon, but we're going to try. So there is this famous saying that says, and it was spoken by Zhu Xi, famous historian, a very great philosopher, educator, poet, politician, some of his titles. He was very influential in developing the Confucian school of thought. So he said, if heaven hadn't given birth to Zhongni, Zhongni is the other name of Confucius, eternity would have been a long, dark night. So we can imagine that profound impact Confucius had on mankind. So in the time that Confucius lived in the world, although he openly taught the classics from the sages prior to him, history, poetry, music, rites, and ceremonies to name a few as his platform. But he actually secretly transmitted the Tao to inspire people of their humanity and righteousness. And his purpose, of course, was to influence, right, those in power to affect change in society. Because the sages, the holy teachers prior to him in the Green Period was the model he wished to restore, right, that society to go back to. And because of all those, his ideals would later lay the foundation for our open propagation now in this time period. So Confucius, who was Confucius? He was a great teacher, philosopher, and I just learned the term political scientist. So his ideas have been compiled in one of the most influential moral classics called 论语, which is one of the 4 books. So 论语profoundly influenced the civilization of China and abroad in setting guiding principles on morality for the individual, families, societies, and their states, and the world at large. So the famous phrase, another famous phrase, half of 论语 can govern the world, is often used to emphasize the importance of studying Confucian classics and practicing the principles in our daily living to bring about peace, harmony, and happiness. Confucius also worked tirelessly to inspire his disciples to emulate those holy teachers, right, in the Tao lineage, the sages of the past, to restore this morality of their state. So about 论语 also, 论语 is Confucius' own innate understanding of daily living, his cultivation, and ultimately his certification to Tao. And it consisted of a collection of discussions, dialogues in which Confucius answered questions presented by his students and other individuals in that time during the spring and autumn period in the Zhou dynasty. And 论语 centers on the ideals of Confucius center on a person's thoughts, speech, and conduct. And it serves as a stabilizing force that can transform wickedness from the individual to family, society, and the world into decency through these ethical principles. So now let's get into the texts themselves. Okay, so 论语, the first line in the chapter, share or chapter, Confucius states, is it not joyful to perpetually practice what one has learned? So let's just look at one line at a time. Here I highlighted the two words in Chinese. So this is pronounced as 学, which means to learn, and then it means 一谢, right? But the point is that, okay, this word character means our heavenly portal. So we learn this through the 1-point transmission in the Tao receiving ceremony, if we recall. So there we learned that we have an inherent true self, which is the Tao, that life force energy within each of us. And we must get to know this true self. That's what we're learning. Review it constantly, become familiar with it, and put it into practice all the time. That's what this line means. And we shall be very joyful from within, because the bright and wonderful qualities of this true self, our true self, will manifest and shine through. Right now, are we using our true self? I like to borrow this picture, right? We are not using our true self. We are actually being directed by these sense portals as the arrows are pointing. That's the idea. We're not using our true self. And so maybe sometimes we are able to use it when we're aware, right? Now, for example, someone points out our mistakes, criticizes me. I get upset and fight back. I see my temper on display, which makes others and myself unhappy, uneasy. This is using our habitual self or the false self. On the contrary, if someone criticizes me, I do not get upset. I take time to reflect upon myself and recognize my mistake. Or even after I do that and I realize, hey, I didn't make a mistake, but still I can accept that, right? And do better. And then we make it a point to correct ourselves. And even better, we thank the person who was kind enough to let us know about our mistake. That is applying, practicing what we have learned. That is applying and using our true self. This makes others and myself happy, that we stay calm and composed. We can see the bright and wonderful quality of our true self on display, which in this case is our sincerity, right? No matter what others do or say, it does not change our awareness, right? To be calm and composed. So that's what it means to practice and use our true self. If we can apply this mindset, which is using our true self to handle people, matters, and all of our circumstances, we will be joyful constantly. It is very easy to do, everyone. No, I'm sorry, I'm just making a joke, not. Why? The Buddhas say that is because we are not yet familiar enough with the principles that can take us back to our true self. So the principles are the bright and wonderful qualities, or we refer to them as the bright virtues that the true self is born with. And those are sincerity, humanity, righteousness, propriety, and wisdom. These bright virtues are essentially like the roads, right, that lead us back to our true self. So because we're not familiar with these principles, we need to learn and review them continuously and put them into practice simultaneously as we learn. So this way, when we deal with people and matters, we will not default to our old self, this false self, which runs on old habits, like being greedy, angry, and stubborn and ignorant. So the principles in 论语 are really simple. Sages will not teach us something very difficult, like how to be an architect, right? God, that's just not possible with everyone. But these principles in daily living practice are very easy to do. The question is, are we willing and do we believe them, right? So we must constantly practice and deepen our effort and then experience personally the effects of those principles that are going to transform ourselves. And like driving home or to work around town, we've done it, right? We've done it repeatedly, and we've become very familiar with those roads, right? So we're able to get to where we need to go without getting stuck. The second line, is it not joyful when one's friend returns from distant places? I also like to say, it reminds me when Transmitter Regent once said that during his presentation on the meaning of class in the beginning of this XinMin class, he said that if we must miss a class, we need to make it up within a week or so, right? So the point of that is that we need to put into practice what we learn in class so that we can see where we are deficient in our cultivation, and then be able to make adjustment, right, to our mindset and conduct, that we can realign ourselves with the principles that we learn. And that's how we can truly change our habit and temper and then benefit from cultivation. He also guided us not to miss the classes and put them off, and then we try to make them all up within a few weeks. We'll make up 2 classes a day, 2 classes a day. And that's going to defeat the purpose of truly practicing what we learn. So that really makes great sense. It is good. Is it not joyful when one's friend returns from distant places? It is good. We can explain this in superficial ways, right? And then we'll talk about the broader implication of this line. It is good to have friends in life, yes. So the superficial explanation of the meaning of this line is, if we're very virtuous, right? We're kind, patient, and selfless, we will draw people to us. They flock to us. They want to be our friends, right? And even our friends from far places, like they're out of state, and even abroad from other countries, they are willing to visit us, especially if we share the same interests. Now, this friend can also mean that when we are upright, and those, especially in the Tao community, those who share our sense of mission and cultivation and propagation will join us from different places, right? It works so well. And then the saints and Buddha, we can think of them as our friends, the heavenly friends that come from the 10 directions to assist us in cultivating and helping us arrange affinity so that we can ferry people to the Tao. However, more broadly speaking, actually, this friend here is referring to our true self, our Buddha nature. And that is our true friend. And the sages, what the sages says, is we can understand is not just very limited in scope, right? So we should understand it this way. Distant places are referring to the desires, forms, and attachments that our sense portals have misled our true self to believe. So thereupon, it causes our mind to get stuck on these false sensations, right? Using the same example, someone criticizes me, I get upset and fight back. So in this case, the sensation of my eyes and ears has taken over and essentially tells my true self to stay in the background. In my mind, I keep thinking, how dare this person criticizes me without even knowing the whole story of what happened. It makes me look bad and lose credibility. I don't like this person. And I don't want to even work with them if I don't have to, right? So our mind is stuck on these images that we call forms and attachments. In this case, our true self is misled, taken afar from its original place of joy and peace. It is now in a place of anger and affliction. However, with the same example, someone criticizes me, I do not get upset. I take time to reflect upon myself and recognize, see where I need to improve, and I make it a point to correct myself. I'm grateful to the person for pointing out my mistake. Now we have awareness. because we're very familiar with the principles. And so our true self, this true friend, returns to its original place of joy and peace, no longer stuck in the place of desire, sensations, and attachment. So these are just metaphor for the distant places, what they mean, right? So that's all fine. Next line, others may misunderstand my position, but I am unaffected, right? So when people do not understand us, they don't recognize our abilities, maybe they even slander us and criticize us, we do not get angry, right? So this line here really serves as a checkpoint for our practice and see what we're made of. Like medicine, right? We must be consistent in taking it. Or the exercise to help us stay healthy. We must uphold that effort, right? And not give up halfway when it gets hard or it's boring and we're distracted or we don't feel like it, right? So we don't mind. We don't get angry or become impatient or we, become self-pitying when people don't understand and recognize or even agree with us, right? So that's the effect when we're able to do that, uphold that, be changeless, right? That's the effect of our true self that is already transforming our mindsets and behaviors, right? And this is concentration that we remain unchanged no matter what the circumstances and environment or people. In fact, we can turn those around, right? With the principles. We're not going to get distracted with these rising thoughts, right? So like tonight, we willed ourselves to attend the class when we can be easily distracted and do something else, right? So cultivate Tao, propagate Tao, no matter how difficult it is, whatever setbacks we come upon. A lot of times we may feel really hard to talk to people about Tao, for example, but it shouldn't stop us from trying. When we're willing to try, we will inspire ourselves and create our own personal stories that can really motivate us to keep working. And when we stay disciplined and focused, we can develop our wisdom to guide us with answers and apply. So these principles are not just, in the classes. We can apply these. These are universal principles. We can apply them to our daily living, elevating our mind, keep on developing our own abilities and potential. So this part talks about how to purify our mind, elevating ourselves from the mundane self to the true self. And the true self, this is what it means to be a person of virtues. Junzi is spoken a lot by Confucius, and that's what we strive to be. Verse 2, Youzi, right, a student of Confucius, states, there are few who cultivated their filial piety and fraternity who would also disrespect their superiors. Those who do not disrespect their superiors, but sow discord, unrest, conflicts, right, are unprecedented, not been done before. Right? So from this part on, it is about a person entering society. Harmony is the most important thing for society to run smoothly and thrive. It cannot run rampant with troublemakers, right? Or to be taken over by unrest. So this requires people to love and nurture and get along with one another, right? So just like a home, if the children fight with their parents or even abuse their parents, the siblings fight against each other, this home will lack a head, like a head of household, and it will be without the order of respect. It's going to be chaotic and eventually crumbles. Out in society, these children grow up, they carry the same mindset to deal with superiors and authorities, right? They don't want to follow rules and do as they wish. They will even challenge and bring down whoever's in their way just because they feel like it, right? We've seen that. So there's no rule of law in their books. And as the saying goes, charity starts at home. So therefore, the big love for everyone is founded upon filial piety and fraternity at home. Because I will show, this is a this here, we can see the impact, right, of what we do at home, how we behave at home has a direct impact on our relationship with people out in society from different levels and different aspects. Right? And like filial piety, you know, if we have that sense of filial piety, that respect, we extend that principle onto the relationship with senior relatives, even temple seniors, transmitters, seniors, employers, teachers, neighbors, community members. Same thing for the fraternal love that we nurture at home. We can bring those, extend that out to nurture relationships with cousins, doubtkings, friends, classmates, co-workers, associates, neighbors, and community members. So they have a very direct relationship. And so if we can't even love and consider our parents and siblings, then how can we love sentient beings, right? So there are those people who fake, you know, they have their dual habits, we call them, but they don't really last long before other people expose their shortcomings, right? Like in the Great Learning, one of the 4 books, it says that a petty person thinks wickedly when they don't feel that anyone's watching them, but in front of a Junzi, they feel ashamed of themselves, right? They even are touched. They are touched by the Junzi's virtue, so they try to act like the Junzi, hiding their deficiencies for the time being. But what good is it, right? When others can see through their disguise. So the fact is, if we respect, appreciate, and reciprocate the grace of our parents, we can naturally extend those, right, to our relationship with others. And this is not to say that we won't have any problems and disagreement with our parents or siblings, but we will work out our differences by applying the principles that we learn and be understanding, nurturing, and selfless. I heard a story where there were 2 neighbors that lived in a small village, and this is from a long time ago, of course. One had a turbulent home where everyone complained and fought with each other. The other one had a peaceful home. So one day, the older son from that turbulent home, he couldn't contain his curiosity as to why they have never seen members of their neighbor fight. So he decided to poke a hole. Just go with the story because I think their houses are made of some kind of rice paper or straw back then. They could easily do that. And what he witnessed awakened him. So apparently each member in that neighbor's home always initiated to apologize to one another whenever something went wrong. Or if one of them made a mistake, even the others, you know, they would apologize and support each other by saying that they should have taken responsibility too, right? So in this way, each member in that family was very cordial and they are considerate of one another. So that was the reason why they never fought, right? So that is a great model for us to follow. So the point is, if one is truly filial and fraternal, they will not overstep their boundaries, right? And disrespect their superiors outside the home. And if they don't disrespect their superiors, then how can they, it's unthinkable that they will create the unrest, right, in society, like the ones that we saw in January 6th, right? Even if they have grievances, right, they will help bring solutions for the greater good of society, right? They don't only consider themselves. So society is made up of members that come from different families. If families run smoothly, we're all contributing to a peaceful society. And therefore, that the core of society lies in healthy family relationships first. So the next process is Junzi establishes themselves using the fundamentals. Once the fundamentals are established, the Tao prevails. So filial piety and fraternity are the fundamentals of humanity. A Junzi, right, virtuous person, upright person, understands that very well. So the focus on building their character based on these 2 principles, filial piety and fraternal love at home. And the Tao is living in them. Therefore, these 2 things or the Tao of humanity, right? They use love to dissolve conflicts and to carry out everything. Saints and Buddhas also advised us in Tao cultivation, we must start with the Tao of humanity, is to perfect these relationships. But what we see now instead is where parents engage their children to learn skills, play sports, instruments, and be extremely competitive, be ahead of others, and be successfully academically, materially, and have high social status and such, right? I'm not saying that these things are bad, but if we can also simultaneously nurture, right, those foundational values, it would be best, right? Better. But we're forgetting the fundamentals, right? It is so now more than ever, it is our responsibility, especially as parents, to instill the practice of filial piety and fraternal love in our next generation, our children, and then model this wholesome character, right? We try to help them restore their true nature. That's how we can all affect change, right? Line 3 says, Confucius states, cunning speech and a pleasant facade rarely make a person of humanity. Indeed, this means that we are very eloquent in speech. We say things that make others feel good about themselves by flattering them, brown-nosing them. Our words can sound so sweet like honey, right? We fake a pleasant and warm countenance around people. It's very tiring to do that, right? Has anyone tried that? It's just very unnatural and tiring. So after these individuals put up the disguise in that manner, and their true intention is to gain something from someone, then how could they think of others, right? They may treat people nicely, such as their supervisors, but then when they get off work, they're probably complaining about supervisors and co-workers, gossiping. So they are very far from humanity. But the fact is, we don't have to be this way, right? We don't have to put so much layers of disguise over our true nature. As long as we're respectful and sincere toward other people, that's doing the basics, and people can feel our sincerity. That's how we can build relationship, right? We don't have to do all the other extra stuff. Line 4, Zhenzi. Everyone, Zhenzi is one of our holy teachers as well in the Tao heritage. He inherited the Tao, the mandate from Confucius. So he is one of the patriarchs within the 64 patriarchs lineage. So Zhenzi states, each day I examine myself on 3 accounts constantly. First, have I been loyal to those I serve? So this is inner cultivation, right? So loyal is not to a person, but to the tasks, responsibilities, and duties. Have we done our best, right? So the only way to do our best is to use our sincere mind and put in dedicated effort, right? For example, when we serve our parents ask us to do something. Do we just get it over with, or do we really put in our sincerity and say, let me consider all factors. How can I do this the best way possible, right? And get it done. So in that way, we will use our true self, right? We touch upon our true self. And also when we serve our employer, for example, outside in society, like for work, right? We get paid 8 hours a day to work, but how many hours do we actually do work, right? And then how much time do we do personal things? We should think about that. And when our employers assign tasks and duties for us, have we put in our best, do it sincerely and regardless of whether we are going to gain something, right? And are we dedicated, right? Or do we just put in more effort if we're going to get a raise, and then we don't care if we're not getting a promotion, right? That's not being loyal to the task and to the jobs that we do. But in everyone that we serve, right? If someone asks us to do something, like in the temple, transmitters, seniors, they ask us to help out. we should put in our best effort, right? Use our true nature, be sincere, right? Sincere and loyal to the task, right? To get it completed, not do half of a job or take shortcuts, that kind of things. Second, am I trustworthy in my interactions with others? So trustworthiness is so vital, right? In our relationships with others, especially with those who we don't have relations with, like family members, right? They don't know us, family members, they might not have a choice. If we are kind of a liar and then we don't do what we promise, they're still going to be our family members. But outside in society, that is like a bridge that connect ourselves to others, right? The trustworthiness is very important. So speak truthfully, and when we say something, do it. That's having wisdom also. And then third, do I practice what I have learned? So we have learned now, for example, the 3 treasures. Have we put the 3 treasures into practice? We learned that we have a true self, right? Are we trying to slowly apply the true self, follow the principles, and don't follow the emotions? The emotions, they are deceptive, and they are that false self, right? Follow the principles, we see a path, right? So keep on practicing. These are like the 3 treasures, in fact. Verse 5, Confucius states, to govern a country of 1,000 chariots. Back in Confucius' time, that's the transportation, the means of transportation they had, right? And that would indicate that state is pretty well to do if they possess 1,000 chariots, a big state. One must attend to all matters with reverence, right? To respect the matter that we are managing, right? Don't be sloppy. Don't take it lightly, because especially governing a country, especially as a person of power, right? There are many people under that look up to us, right? So we must set an example. We must be trustworthy and speak, put in our effort, right? Trustworthy and speak carefully. And then after we speak about something, we should match it with action, right? So unlike nowadays, you see how many politicians make promise and just to get elected, and then those avoid, right, after they're elected. So, and then the people, and that's why we have so much distrust, right? Mistrust in the modern society. And then next is as a leader, as anyone actually, as a parent, as people, as Dao members, right, that people look up to us, we should set an example of conservation and then love the people. So speaking of conservation, I would like to borrow our grand predecessor, the Baishui Sengdi, sagely king of pure water, grand predecessor Han. This is the famous, right? I learned this through a holy medium who, in her class, because she worked so closely in Lao Tianyuan, our grand predecessor trained them. And so in her recollection of Lao Tianyuan's legacy, she shared in her lecture about these ordinary things that Lao Tianyuan did, but they possess such greatness to help us really inspire ourselves to change and follow, emulate. This is what I would call a reception sink, right in the front of the building. So whenever the visitors visited Lao Tianyuan in this holy compound complex called Fushan, they wash their hands. But notice this sink, right, you have the faucet, and then underneath the sink there are 2 buckets there that to catch the water, so they don't go to the ground and get wasted. So we using the same water in 3 different applications. So they wash their hands, the water drop to the bucket, and they're not really dirty yet, right? So according to Lao Tianyuan, based on the account of the holy medium, and the holy medium is like the one that we had the great honor to to witness, right? The one that came to, not her particularly, but you know, that's who they are. Like in the New York City Italian class this month actually. So yeah, so the Lao Chen would catch the water with a bucket, and then he would take this water inside the building to mop the floor with this water. And then after we mop the floor with this water, then he used that dirty water to water the garden, the trees and the flowers and all of that landscaping things, right? So yeah, 3 different applications. Conservation, right? So very frugal. And Lao Chen really saved all these blessings to benefit the latter generation. And then another really great, I mean, just Lao Chen's virtues are like Confucius, unparalleled. This is a pair of socks that Lao Chen wore. I heard like decade, many years, right? So think about a pair of socks. How many years we wear a pair of socks, right? Maybe not that long. In nowadays, we like to shop nowadays, right? But Lao Chen, if you see this part here, that's being resew and mended, right? They've been worn out. They had holes in them. Lao Chen kept mending these holes, right? And the divine thing that the 3 talents, right, the holy medium shared was that she tried to help Lao Qian, she offered to help Lao Qian once, and then when she did it, it wasn't smooth, right? The inside and outside were not smooth. They were full of knots, right? So because when you use a needle and you tie the knot at the end, and then the needle goes through one side of the fabric and then it comes back again, right? She couldn't smooth out those rough patches, but Lao Qian was able to. So, because imagine if you had all those different knots, you know, sticking out, and then you put them on your feet and you stand on your feet, they kind of, it's like stepping on some smooth needles, right? Not very comfortable. But how did Lao Qian manage to make them all smooth, right? That's his wonderful true nature at work. We don't know how, but that's a wonderful example of Lao Qian. And seeing nowadays, you know, with food waste and world hunger, it is said that the food waste in the world, 30% or 33% of the food waste comes from the United States, from our country here. And we see that all the time. People, you know, taking a bite and just tossing them, right? But look at all the hunger in the world, you know, especially with children in different parts of the world. They're not as fortunate. So we are creating karma, by the way. If we waste food like this, we are going to be reborn as in those countries, right? In places where food is very scarce, that there's no food to eat. So just be mindful. This is a funny picture from last year, when it was so hot that the government was talking about limiting water usage in the southwest of this country. Right, 126 degrees. That's unthinkable. But I do remember last year was unbearably hot, even here in Iowa. And people, you know, how do we treat this kind of phenomenon? We are unfazed, right? It doesn't occur to us, wow, this is really hitting home, you know, we need to realize and wake up, you know, don't waste. And the connection to why there's such phenomenon is the fact that we waste our resources, right? We cut down the trees, we use water to grow animals, which use a lot of water, right? And so the resources are being depleted, right? And we still don't realize that. And we keep on eating so much meat, the demand is so high. And look at the sign from the government, 2 days per week watering only, right? So all these are warning signs that we should take seriously. And through studying the classics, right, we should connect what's happening in reality in our society to what the sages have long forewarned us that things are to come. If we don't turn around and change our mindsets and our behaviors. Okay, next, to love the people, consider their circumstances and employ them appropriately. This is referring to back then, those rulers, you know, it was those farming societies. The rulers, if they were corrupted or they were not upright, they would abuse the people. You know, they draft them to build a road or the bridges, or do whatever public projects, right, for the government. But you know, when they did that, you know, the righteous ruler would consider the people, so they would try to avoid the seasons, right? So if it's planting season, you know, harvesting season, they would not draft those farmers, you know, because it would really draw resentment from the farmers. You know, that's their natural their time to work, and then they get drafted, and it would make them not be able to harvest. Maybe then you're gonna have shortage of food, right? So it's not ideal. So righteous ruler would not do that. But we don't have that problem right now in current society. You know, government have their own contractors, their own even construction companies to take care of all of those things. But still, we can extend this idea, right, onto, you know, as being a parent, do we consider our children's needs, and do we consider other people's needs? You know, how do we be a leader that we truly love people, right? Love our children, family members, and even the leaders in the Dao community, right? Do we consider the Dao members' needs and circumstances when we ask them to help? Because, you know, as the 15 rules and regulations says, all people, they're instruments of God, right? They are God's property. So if we abuse these people, then they will not be there to help us out, right? To be available for us. And so, yeah, and we can see that this is a picture where, I don't know, last year, a couple of years ago now, we see lines, right? Miles of cars that got stuck on the highway, because these people, ordinary people, they are fleeing their country because they were being drafted, right? The government tried to mobilize them to fight in the war. And so, as this paragraph says here, that no one wants to fight, no one wants to kill, no one wants to die. So yeah, if as a leader, we should consider, right? So stay away from this. This is a destruction, right? So our true nature is not about destruction. It's about nurturing, loving kindness, and inspiring people to manifest their true nature, true qualities, right? And make, you know, society a better place, not to destroy it. Okay, so in this way, when we can consider people's circumstances, then the people feel at ease, right? And they will naturally, you know, follow us. Line 6, Confucius said, at home, one should be filial to their parents, and beyond home, one should, you know, be respectful of superiors. One should be trustworthy and earnest, loving all sentient beings, and staying close to those who exemplify humanity. So after these fundamentals, and notice Confucius over and over again, right, and his disciples place such emphasis on these fundamentals of filial piety and fraternal love, because they are the foundation to build the other relationships, right? So one may devote themselves to academics, and sometimes, you know, and we may not feel, you know, we may not feel that our parents, you know, at times, right, that we can get along with our parents, but this is where we have to follow the principles, right? And so that we can, you know, build our relationship and then extend that outside with the superiors. And trustworthiness is, as we talked about, value greatly, loving all sentient beings. So we love all sentient beings, sincerely, not just the ones that we like, right? And then stay close to those who exemplify humanity, or that we also stay close to our own humanity within. So these are fundamentals that we must establish as a person, right? And then we can talk about the academics. So nowadays is reverse, right? We emphasize on academics as we talked about here. And then 子谢 verse 1:7 here says, 子谢 states, value virtues over forms, exert the utmost sincerity in serving one's parents. Value virtues, it means that we cherish, right, the virtues that these inherent qualities that we have, like those exemplified by the sages and Buddhas, right? So like the other day, I had two handymen that came to my house and to look at a paint job. And one of them told me, actually, he said he has a regular job, but then he also takes these odd jobs on the weekend to help pay for his younger sister's college tuition. When I heard that, my eyes lit up, and I was really excited to hear that. And I was touched by his virtues of fraternity. How many people can do that nowadays, right? Not many. So that's our fundamentals, that's really what nurture us as a person and help us develop greatly. It is like sort of like this first vow that we took, one of the first two vows that we took, that emphasized on the holy affairs over the mundane affairs after we graduate from the Dharma class. And then forms, right? The forms in this verse here is referring to the looks of someone, in the as a man or woman that we are attracted to, right? Which is very misleading. Sometimes those get somebody's attention real quick, right? But it should, that should not be our emphasis. It should be on the virtues, because virtues are everlasting. So when we serve our parents, we feel sometimes it feels like our parents are hard to serve sometimes, so sometimes we may give up. We don't, but the fact is we don't have to give in to our parents' wishes completely. But we should ask ourselves, have we done our best to serve them, right? Some people, it is true that they don't have really good affinities with their parents, but still, we try our best, right, to be righteous and loyal to the duties as a child, and not how we feel about what our parents do or say. Personally, sometimes I used to be baffled at why my mom does not see more value in what I do. So my mom in general thinks that I work too hard and I do too much. But last year, when she stayed with us, so I really took the time to observe her daily routines. So my mom would get up at the same time every single day, and she'd carry out the same house chores on very routine basis. And that kind of like make me realize what Buddhas have said, right? The Tao is reflecting in the very simple tasks that we carry out in daily living, which is to do what we're supposed to. So I can see my mom's advice, aligning with the true principles. So sometimes we just have to try our best, and we will find ourselves seeing the value in things our parents say or do. And that's really going to help nurture understanding and growth, right? So next talks about devoting ourselves to serve the sovereign. Okay, so this one here, yeah, it's that same idea, be loyal to our duties and tasks that are assigned to us, dedicate our time and effort, right? Do a good job, regardless if you're going to gain something or not, right? If we are on the job, just do it. Don't think about, if I work really hard for 2 months, then I get my boss to notice me and get me a promotion. If I don't get a promotion, my coworker got a promotion instead, then why should I work harder, right? So that's not being loyal to our duties, right? So being loyal means we work with our motive and do what we're supposed to do. In the Dao community, we do see this kind of spirit of service a lot, right? We're loyal to our duties, and so many Dao members are great examples for us to follow, and the seniors too. They devote they made sacrifice, right? Sacrifice their families and time, money, everything. So we should follow that, regardless if we can gain something. Are we going to be blessed by the Buddhas, right? That shouldn't be in the back of our mind. Trustworthiness, again, there was a story, right, in the old days. There was a great general called Jibu, right? Jibu. And Jibu was known for his trustworthiness, right? So people would say that it was better to have Jibu's word than to receive 1,000 taels of gold as the world was going around. So that was how trustworthy he was, right? So when we have trustworthiness, people feel at ease with us. They can entrust in us, right? So that's really a must character trait, that really important to have, especially if we want to establish good affinity with sentient beings and then ferry them to receive the Tao, right? A lot of people may speak, still randomly and make promises that they can't keep. But if we take a look around, society still values, right, this trust so highly. Look at all the employers, landlords, schools, people in general. They do background checks and credit checks, right, before they hire somebody to do the job or do business with them. So in this chapter, it examines our mindset, intent, and how we treat our parents at home and how we work with others outside the home, how we maintain relationship with others. And that's what Confucius defined as a well-learned person, right? And his disciple as well, not the academic achievements or the social status and material wealth. Okay, verse 8, Confucius states, if a Junzi is unfocused and not composed, they will lack dignity. Their learning is not firm. Okay, so this part talks about a Junzi, right? The person, upright person, virtuous person possessing this dignity that draws people's respect for them naturally, right? So back in the days with the Confucian disciples, they have to go out and teach people, right, in different places. And if they didn't have this quality, then, where people just respect them naturally, they really have no influence on them, right? So if people don't care for us or take us seriously, then how can we teach them? And same thing when we spread the Tao, right? If people just kind of like don't have much regard for us, then we can't connect with them. And so when people see value in us, then they'll listen to our advice, right? So dignity here means that we are stable and composed as a person. Composed is that we are very calm and stable in our daily living, in the way we speak and deal with others and manage things. Even the way we eat, right? Don't eat too fast and, swallow the wrong and go down the wrong pipe, and then we kind of cough uncontrollably. And the way we walk, right? That can show how composed a person can be. And so in this way, we carry this force of concentration, right? Usually we are scatter-minded. There was a funny story that, one time, I heard from a transmitter. Somebody asked him, if I was driving on the road, I was not paying attention and I was about to hit a person and a dog, right? So which one should I choose? Should I hit the dog or the person? And the transmitter told him, you should brake your car first, right? So yeah, we are kind of absent-minded. And then also we are impatient in managing things that cause us to also not able to focus, right? So when our mind is focused, it is the sharpest, right? So we can really, accompany ourselves with that concentration, right? And this here, the second part of line 1A, use loyalty to guide our actions, use trustworthiness to guide our words. So loyalty to our actions, to the task and responsibility that we have, right? not necessarily to the person. Use trustworthiness to guide our words. So what we speak should be the truth, right? And don't deceive others. We can only bring trouble to ourselves and taint our reputation. And then learn from those whose virtues surpass our virtue, right? So they can be our teacher, and guide those whose virtue is still developing, like in the Tao community. Those who come later, we can help them, right? Establish the learning and then encourage them, and then work together with those matching ourselves, right? Those would be our co-cultivators, people that we work with, right? And then when we make mistakes, do not be afraid to correct ourselves, right? Some people normalize their mistakes, right? So they say, you know what? I have a bad temper. There's nothing I can do. Everyone has a temper. So they start to deny that they even have a temper, that they have a mistake. So they start to normalize their mistakes. Mistakes are really hard to change because they come, not mistake, I mean habits, right? Bad habits, bad temper, because the first step is we must admit that we have faults, right? And then you have to take time through the principles, like cleaning. We have to keep on scrubbing until one day that it sets in our mind and we can correct our mistakes. The last line, Zhengzi said, treat death as a big matter and commemorate those who left a virtuous legacy. Then the social norms, morality, and cultural tradition of people shall return to their state of purity and integrity. So death is a big matter, right? Life and death are big matters, as the saying goes, right? So people usually do not emphasize on death, right? They're afraid of death. They don't know where they're going. They focus on living well, having fun, But living well still, it kind of confines us to this human world, right? When we receive the Tao, remember the transmitter said, congratulations, So why they congratulated us? Because we are transcending the cycle of life and death after we receive the Tao, provided, right, that we cultivate and propagate and follow our vows and the rules, right? So in a way, reverse psychology, yeah, it's good to emphasize on death because then because the mundane mind, right? We think that life is so short, then we should enjoy ourselves to the fullest. Do whatever we want, disregarding the rules and ethics, right? So it has never occurred to us that hell is where we go after we die. It sounds like we are scolding someone, but it is true, right? We remember that reincarnation of the soul diagram. So if we are mindful about death, right, cautious about death, then we care about where we go, right? We want to go back to absolute heaven, right? We don't want to reincarnate. Sometimes we might become an animal based on what our actions are during the time that we live. So in this way, we can restrain ourselves to not go out of bounds, right? We dare not do whatever we wish. And then we observe rules and uphold moral integrity, right? And so, yeah, in that way. And then also we commemorate those who passed away that left a legacy, right? That we should record their good deeds, celebrate their contribution and sacrifice, right? So that people know, and also they will emulate from those, right? Like those holy teachers, the whole 64 holy teachers in the Tao heritage. So that this way, if we can do that, then the social customs, moral ethics, and the cultural atmosphere, they restore to their state of purity and integrity. I would like to conclude in this presentation with this verse from Confucius. It's in chapter book 12, verse 19. The moral force of a Junzi is like the wind. So Junzi, this upright person, like Tao cultivators, true self, like the wind. The moral force of the petty person, right? The petty person is not just talking about someone who's lowly. It's talking about us. Our human nature and our false self is this petty self, right? It's like the grass. So it really is not hard to defeat it, right? If we have the consistency and practice, and then the conviction to keep going, right? So let the wind blow over the grass and it is sure to bend. So yes, we can overcome our human nature, those habits and temper with the true self. And so this concludes the class. And if I made mistakes, I ask for saints and Buddhas for forgiveness for the correction from transmitters and our senior lecturers, Kai and Tai. 感谢天师德，感谢老千贤大德。Thank the transmitters, lecturers, and temple hosts, and thank all of you